Hey everyone, Catch 'em All Collectibles here. In today's video, we are going to settle, finally, the debate of flipping versus investing in Pokemon. Which wins, which is better? And yeah, by the time you see the end of this video, there will be no doubt on which is supreme. I will not use theory. I will go back in time at a transaction that I made 11 years ago, and I will show you what that would have become today. This might sound familiar if you were in my live stream last week. I actually am recording this the day that it goes live. I just got back from Card Party. I will recap that in next week's video, so stay tuned for that. But anyways, yeah, flipping versus investing. If you followed along for a while, if you haven't, maybe click that sub button and do follow along if you enjoy this content. But if you followed along, you know that my story is that back in 2014, I got back into the hobby and I allocated myself $5,000 towards this little experiment. Whatever this is, whatever this was, I put $5 into it. I allowed myself $5 to spend on our favorite intellectual property. And where did I start? So 2014, I got back in, and Phantom Forces was the newest set. I couldn't find the email that had the actual invoice on it, but here is October 30th, 2014, right around spooky season that we're going into right now. I bought a case of Phantom Forces, and there's my FedEx delivery with all addresses and everything redacted, but all that stuff is right there. And I flashed the wrong image there for a second, but here is, if you had the pleasure of around Halloween 2014, like I did, of being on Potomac Distribution's website, you could have bought, yes, that does say $532 for a booster case of Phantom Forces. And I didn't buy all $5,000 into that, and I'll kind of cover that throughout this video, I think, because I guess I'll jump to that right now. I didn't just invest. I never only just invested. I had what at the time $5,000 went a lot further, but it was still like a relatively small pool of capital. I had $5,000, but I had time. And then this is what it ultimately comes down to. Flipping versus investing. Do you enjoy flipping? Do you have the time to flip? If no to either of those, like maybe it's not right for you. But anyways, I bought one. I bought one and I opened it. And then shortly thereafter, I made the best investment of my life thus far. It wasn't Bitcoin. It wasn't Pokemon sealed product. Go back to last week. Last week, PK had some epic rants. It was getting wholesale allocation. It was getting a wholesale distribution. Before allocation was even a thing, I got in with Distro shortly after buying. Potomac Distribution. It had distribution in the name. I thought that was a distributor. I thought that was what distribution was. And then I come to find out that it's your Peach State, GTS, Mad Al, Alliance, companies like that. And I got in with those. And that has been that's paying dividends today like I could have never imagined. But anyways, I went and I bought that Phantom Forces case, and you know what I did? I didn't sit on it. I ripped everything. But what this video is, what I started talking about last week in that live stream, is what if I just put all $5 into Phantom Forces cases? And let's round up a little bit. Let's round up. I forget if I paid shipping on that. I think it was free shipping, no sales tax. But let's pretend like I paid shipping and sales tax, whatever it may be. But let's just get it to a more round number. Let's get it to a more round number of $100 a box. Recent sales, look on eBay, look, some have gone for 11, 12, 13. I think they're closer to 10. Being conservative, again, let's be a little conservative. Let's say Phantom Forces went from a $100 box to a $10,000 box. Send it out, pay a little bit of a fee to consign it, sell it, whatever. Let's keep aside taxes, let's keep aside gains and all that stuff. But if you had bought 11 years ago, like I did, you had bought Phantom Forces, and then unlike I did, if you had just sat on it, if you put your $5 into it, sat on it, you would have $500,000 today. 100 to 10,000 is 100x. 5,000 would go to 500,000. You, in 11 years of doing nothing, just sitting on it, risky, insurance, theft, all that aside, leave all that complexity aside, you would have made $495,000 in capital gains for just sitting there doing nothing. And how would that have compared to what I actually did? So I enjoyed buying and selling Pokemon. I had the time to. Back in 2014, I didn't have kids. I had, so at the time I had a fiance. I made that purchase with a fiance who did not know what she was getting into. But a year later, we were married. And 3 years after we were married, we had kids. And had I had kids at the time, I probably wouldn't have had the time. I probably wouldn't have turned this hobby So the amount of luck that went into like when I got into Pokemon, when I found it, when I found my binder, when I bought that case, and everything that's been built today from it is just crazy. But yeah, so I didn't get $500,000. I don't have 50 boxes of Phantom Forces to show or getting back into the hobby. Then I ripped that case. I bought more cases. I ripped more cases, and I actually got some cases through distribution. Some cases through distribution in 2014, 2015. And so what did I actually do? I started flipping, and I made a video, 10 years of selling on eBay. I made that video in early 2024, if I believe. So that video's a little over a year old now. But I showed you the first year how much I sold, total sales. I didn't give you my net year by year, but like you could probably estimate what my net was year by year. But I one interesting thing that I kind of like napkin mathed out in my head in that live stream last week is that I don't have $500,000 of sealed Phantom Forces to show for it today. But if you go back 2014 to 2019, I snowballed my inventory. I never took a penny out. I snowballed it. That $5,000 didn't grow into like a bunch of money I took out in my bank account. It simply grew in inventory. It grew in the amount of graded cards, the amount of sealed product, the amount of sealed cases I had set back. Some amount investing, some amount flipping, some amount, a little bit of everything. Grading, not yet live selling, not yet some of the things that I do today, not yet consigning, consulting. But in 2020, this is the accidental thing that I showed. In 2020, these were the first dollars that ever came out. And Dan, you put $5,000 in 2014, and somehow you were pulling $125,000 out in 2020, and that was just a small portion of what I had. I talked about before, like Pokemon helped me pay off my house. Pokemon helped me pay off my mortgage early, which was like hindsight's 2020. I paid off my house in 2020. I could have done a lot more had I kept it, blah, 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 risk, sleeping better at night. But that's what I actually did. And once you go from the wire, I took 125,000 out. The amounts, the dates are right there. And then every year, where's my, there we go. Every year since 2020 as well, I've been maxing out this. For those uninitiated, my buckets, I build an emergency fund. I max my 401k, my IRAs. I don't have employer match. Well, I match myself. I'm the employer and the employee. So I do all that stuff before I put a penny into Pokemon. And just interestingly enough, the way that it works out, it's I could get the actual numbers if I went back to my W-2s and my Vanguard statements and whatever it may be. But I'm not going to get the exact amount. But just so happens that like the 125,000 I took out in 2020, and then maxing 401ks and IRAs every year from 2020 to 2025 between me and my wife, it works out close enough to call it $500,000. Let's just call it $500,000, call it a wash. And then so had I invested, done nothing with those 50 boxes of Phantom Forces, I would have made $500,000. But I've already pulled 500,000 out. It's in my 401ks, it's in my IRAs, it's compounding for the next 50 years without touching, without doing anything on it, and without any tax implications until I withdraw it, because it's, yeah, we're not going to get into all that here. But on top of that, what do I have? Almost an 8,000 subscriber video YouTube channel. Not much value to that directly, but indirectly, I have a consignment business where I'm making today in this market. Maybe won't always stay this way, but I'm making way more than I ever made as a chemical engineer. I'm making way more consigning, live streaming, setting up independent contractors to live stream with me, for me. And so on top of having matched, taking out the same amount, if I had 50 boxes of Phantom Force and I sold them all today, even tax implications aside, it would be gone, and that would be it. That would be entirely what I had. But because I flipped, I have, I've talked about how I have 100,000 packs for the live streams. I've talked about the gray felt hat plate, and most of those are gone. Well, those are almost entirely gone, except for the couple that I kept. But I have a lot of these, and I have a lot of various things. I recently bought a box from Cam. Go check out that video. That was a really cool story of actually a unintended or intended investment. Here's the original invoice, $700. They bought it from the Shop at Home network, HSN, the home Shop at Home shopping network. Are those the same thing? Whether they are or not, they're pretty similar to the same thing. But $700 is what that original buyer had paid for that, and then they sold it to Cam in the 20s, and then I bought it in the 30s. So that was a pretty good return on investment there for that. But yeah, on top of having already taken out the same $500,000 I could have taken out if I had bought those Phantom Forces, and being realistic, would I have sold the Phantom Forces when they were worth 50 grand and I could have paid off my first house? Would I have sold them when they were 100 grand? 100, like, I probably would have sold them. The 50 to 500 grand though, the slow growth from 5,000 to 50,000 was over years, and then the growth from 50,000 to 500,000 would have been like that. So I don't know at what point I would have sold it in there. But anyways, yeah, today I have gainful employment, making much more than I've ever made as a chemical engineer. I'm able to help aid in the gainful self or side employment of other people, independent contractor, PK, Ponga, Skya, Spat. So I have no regrets in hindsight, but if you're listening along closely, somebody ought to Dan, that's not fair. You can't do that. You can't compare flipping, which is working, with passively investing. Correct. That is a correct observation. That is a correct statement. And I did go through the math in that live stream, and I'll go through it again. So I've been in for 11 years. In my least active years, I have minimum engaged in Pokemon for 20 hours every week. Minimum. So like my floor is 1,000 hours a week. My ceiling, there's definitely been some years where, whether that was when I was full-time years or years before I was full-time, there's been years where I've been putting 60 hours a week into Pokemon. So 3,000 hours a year at my high end, 1,000 hours a year at my low end. A full-time job is 2,000 hours a year. So let's just say it was my full-time job for the past 11 years, which to be honest is probably like a reasonable like that. That's probably close to what it is. That's 11,000 hours. No, sorry. That's 20,000 hours. 22,000 hours. 2,000 hours a year for 11 years. That's 22,000 hours. So what did I get for that? What did I get for that? I'm not going to give you to the penny. One, because I don't know, but two, that's a little bit beyond the level of transparency that I will give. But it is minimum seven figures. It is well into the 7 figures. But let's just say it's $1 million. $1 million. We like round numbers. We're rounding down my inventory to $1 million, so we're gonna round 22,000 hours down to 20,000 hours. So if my math is serving me correctly, $1 million of inventory that I have today, and 20,000 hours to kind of build to that, along with what I took out, because we're matching. Like, we're washing the Phantom Forces booster boxes with everything I took out, paying off the house, maxing out the 401ks and IRAs. And so I've worked 20,000 hours for $1 million. And if you had done this math like back in 2018, the hourly rate would have been very low for a long time. And then it's kind of like it's done big things in the past couple of years. And but it's $50 an hour. I worked for 10 years as a chemical engineer. My starting salary was in the low 50s, high 50s with bonuses and all that stuff, and then health insurance, blah blah. Like the whole package would have been worth more than that. But like the pay alone was high 50s. I ended it was in like the 80s. I never made a crazy amount of money as a chemical engineer. My average performance over the past 11 years, like in Pokemon, I've made on average $50 an hour. Very rounded down, it might be closer to double that or wherever it is exactly. But let's just say that. So I clearly flipping worked well for me. I had the time. I enjoyed my time doing it. But just because that's the case for me, and one thing I'll say too is like I do consulting for $100 an hour today, and I'm not going to give the exact hourly rate that I make for consigning, the exact hourly rate that we make for live streaming and all that, but I'm making more than $50 an hour on average right now, significantly more. So not only am I only left with just items that I can sell one time and then they're done, I have a name, a brand, a business with a lot of value. Now, is that value that I can really like, can I just sell my business? In its current state, it would be very hard to just sell directly Catch 'em all collectibles because I am Catch 'em all collectibles, right? But just an interesting video, not just theoretical, not just looking at lines on a chart. Oh, I could have done this. I actually had the boxes, the cases of Phantom Forces. I flipped them and I churned them and I sold them. The experiences that I've had, I made a video before. I've opened every box. I've opened every box from base set, besides base set first edition. I opened base set in every other language, first edition, aside from English. but I opened every box along the way. I had some big collector endeavors along the way that were like financially a drain. I did not make money opening every booster box over the years. So a lot went into this. A lot went into what has become today over the past 11 years. Buying that Phantom Forces booster case is one of the first ones that I bought. Another thing that I made a note here. I'm looking at my note here. Usually this would probably have been better as a Dan Catch 'em All Collectibles presentation, but I'm recording this way too late to put together a full presentation. But what if I didn't buy? Like, so my comparison point for this video was $500,000, 50 boxes of Phantom Forces. What if I instead bought a PSA 10 base versus Charizard? I used to go to a Rangers game every year with my dad and one of his buddies, and it was a tradition that got the pandemic stopped it, but we've revived it. We've been a couple years now going to a Rangers game every year. I distinctly remember. I remember way back then talking to my dad about like we should invest, we should buy, speculate, whatever, together a PSA 10 base versus Charizard. And I looked on PSA, and I did see on PSA. So this was back in PWCC eBay days. In September of 2016, one sold for $8,800. My memory, if I had to guess what a PSA 10 base versus Charizard was in 2014, I would have guessed $5,000. This is the closest that I could find, but it makes me feel good about my guess. I feel like $5,000 is accurate. So what if we had bought a PSA 10 base versus Charizard? Well, those are worth like $300, $350, somewhere in there. There's strong copies, weak copies, blah, blah, blah. Let's say it's $400,000 to $500,000. It's slightly underperformed the Phantom Forces booster boxes, right? What if we bought an Illustrator? I didn't even have the time or the energy to go in but I know that I couldn't have bought, if there were a folded in half, ripped in half, like some of those Onus Wagners that you see, it's like it's 2/3 of the card. I don't think I could have bought one of those for $5,000. And today, you can actually buy some Illustrators depending on the grade. Like some Illustrators sell for below $500,000. So I think generally the Illustrator has underperformed because $5,000 couldn't have gotten me an entire one, yet $500,000 can get me an entire one today. Not like in PSA 10, Logan Paul probably wouldn't sell that for a 90% loss. But anyways, it's just interesting to compare. Maybe someone in the comments can say like, oh, you like, this is actually the single best performing item over the past 11 years. You could have bought this certain item for $1 and now it's $1,000. Some of those might exist out there. I don't know. But if I could have 1,000x my money, do I have so I think the flipping that I did, it significantly outperformed investing, and I was compensated very fairly in the business that I have today, the $50 an hour that I made along the journey, or whatever it would actually be. So I don't regret whatsoever my flipping decision over investing, although I've always done a little bit of both. But what if I could have 1,000x? What if I could have 10,000x? I don't have 50. I'm gonna give you a spoiler. I rounded down to $1 million. I promise I don't have $50 million of inventory. That's what a 1,000x would have done, right? I promise I don't have $5 million worth of inventory. Maybe someday. We're getting closer and closer every day. But I rounded down to $1 million, not from 5 million. I promise. So if there was something that I could have 1,000x'd, 1,000x would have been the 5 million. 10,000x would be the 50 million. I think I misspoke there for a minute. But anyways, it's crazy. It's crazy. One thing that I always say, same arena, different games, different rules. In 2014, I was honestly probably we're always in the same arena of Pokemon, but I was probably playing the same game. I was probably playing by the same rules as most people watching this video today. If you're watching this video today and you don't have your EIN and you don't have distribution and you don't have, you're not an S corporation, all that stuff, you're probably largely playing by the rules that I was then. The only reason I didn't pay sales tax on my Potomac distribution order is because they didn't charge it. Some websites still get away with doing that. Sales tax nexus, they just entirely ignore all that. But anyways, these days, what are the rules that I play by? One rule that I play by, going back to PK's rant last week, is that I have an allocation from 11-year relationships with my 2 distributors, and that's just like free money. I feed it into the live stream and sell it for like multiples of what I pay. I bought my Mega Evolution allocation at $100 a box, but that is a rule. There's a rule that like every 2-3 months, I just get this allocation that is just free tendies. Like that is a rule that I get to play by. because I've been here for so long and built that relationship and built that allocation that other people don't get that. Other people don't have the option for that. And it just is what it is. Like, you can be mad about it, you can be, but it just is. And another rule, this rule I created, I guess that one, it could be argued either way. I would say it's more luck than anything, to be honest. If you had told me 11 years ago, Dan, you're just going to get a free $100,000 every year from the allocation that you set up here and bought. I was buying from my distro for $80 a box when P Football Pete was $80 a box on eBay, and getting eBay bucks and getting cash back and all that stuff. So I guess I've earned it from some regard, but it's mostly luck. Anyways, a rule that I created for myself, and anyone watching this video now can stop making the biggest mistake that investors make. Anybody can create for themselves the rule of, I'm not paying sales tax on items intended for resale. Please, I like, very rarely do I tell or ask people to do something. Please, if you are engaging as a business per IRS regulations, like, if you're buying with intent to resell for more money, like, you shouldn't be paying sales tax. You should be paying income taxes done correctly. Like, you won't have to pay much in income taxes if you're snowballing like I was from 2014 to 2019. Cash basis, spend at zero, yada, yada, yada. But like, people like look at other, well, he has this, he has that, and people will just make themselves a victim of circumstance or whatever. And the one rule that you can immediately change for yourself, like overnight, you can change for yourself. You can create your own rule of, I don't pay sales tax on items for resale anymore. It blows my mind that people will not go and do that. But it is what it is. And another thing that I wanted to say, like, for me, hindsight, my own personal anecdote. That's what this entire channel is. This channel is my anecdote. My anecdote is that flipping won. So moral of the story, who wins? Flipping, investing. Flipping was a landslide victory. I have $100,000 allocation every year into the future, supposedly, if things never go under MSRP again. And I took out more than Phantom Forces would have given me. And I've built this business that's paying me these hourlies and all that stuff. So flipping won by a landslide. But I am me and you are you. And there are people that I've spoken to, there are people that I've done consultations with, that every year from 2014 to today, they've been a doctor for 20 years. And they make $500,000 to $1 million a year. I've consulted with people making $1 million a year. So they're working their 2,000, 3,000 hours, and instead of making $50 an hour, they're making $500 an hour or more in some instances. And it's like, to those people, especially wife, kids, whatever it may be, they enjoy traveling. They don't want to flip. They don't have the time to flip. It is very reasonable, and it would have been very good performance. In hindsight, it's easy to go back and say, like, hey, if they had bought 10 cases of Phantom Forces and 10 cases of Primal Clash and Roaring Skies and Ancient Origins and Breakthrough, Breakpoint, all those, they would have done really, really well. But it's so much more based on who you are, your rules, your abilities, your desires, than just like, hey, this is the universal truth for everybody. I think that's what a lot of people on YouTube do. I know that's what a lot of people on YouTube do. This was the best investment. All other ones, no nuance. That's all it's about. It's like, you could find two similar items that have climbed a certain amount over a certain time frame, but it's like, well, these have tripled, but if you graded them, they could have 10x. They could have. There's always like more ways, more angles, more nuance to look at things. It's people always go to the black or white. People always go to the binary 0-1. There's always more to the story. And this video, this channel is my story. So I say flipping wins every time. I enjoy doing it. I'm going to continue doing it. But yeah, definitely go check out that video Cam made. This was a really cool story. He unearthed original shipping box, original packing slip of an investor, right? Of somebody that bought it, set it back, forgot it. It's crazy to think like they didn't sell in the 2021. Boom. How did that come out 4 years later? It's pretty wild. But yeah, I think that's everything I have. Next week, stay tuned. I will do a card party recap. I had an absolute blast. I'm finishing recording this video at 11:30 a.m. I have 90 minutes to upload this timestamp it, get it the thumbnail. Hopefully it works out. Hopefully you're seeing this at 1 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to stop rambling so that you can hopefully do that. If it's 5-10 minutes late, it is because I'm talking right now. As always, I appreciate you all watching. give me a rocket emoji in the chat if you made it all the way to the end. I appreciate you all watching. I will catch you all later.